Some of you may remember that about a year ago I uploaded a video sharing my thoughts and speculation about the possible lore behind the Yo Mama YouTube series, and now with the release of the final joke, I wanted to take the chance to re-evaluate my thoughts on this series with all the new information provided. If you want to see my thoughts from 1 year ago, then the link will be in the description, although I'll warn you now, the production quality of that video is incredibly low. Anyway, what is the story behind Yo Mama? I'll first begin by going through the 5-episode mini-series building up to the finale, as well as the actual finale, and sharing my thoughts on it, as well as explaining what's actually going on. On top of that, I'd also like to discuss whether my previous theories could still hold up, and if so, what changes does this new information add to the theory? Before we start, if you haven't watched the final joke yet, then, I don't really know what you're doing here. What can I possibly explain to you? You haven't watched it. So go watch it in the link in the description, and then you can come back. Now, let's begin taking another look at Yo Mama's deeper story. The miniseries begins with a short episode with one point of great significance. In this episode, we see that Rich Mama has some interest in Brody Fox's earrings, to the point where she bribes him into giving them to her. At this point, there isn't much to add, as more information regarding this event is released in later episodes, so let's discuss them, shall we? And then we can come back and examine the information that we have on hand. In the second episode, we see Brody's old buddy, old pal, old chum, Axel, telling a Yo Mama joke. After he leaves the studio, he speaks to Brody and notices that his earrings are missing. It's at this point that we learn Axel actually gave Brody those earrings and is desperate to get them back. Once again, there isn't much to say in this episode alone, as having all the episodes combined means information can be cross-compared much easier. So, we'll keep going. Episode 3 involves old Mama talking to Brody, who is waiting for Axel to return from the toilet. In front of Brody, she appears calm and relaxed, as if she bears no interest in his earrings whatsoever. However, the moment Brody leaves, her demeanour shifts rapidly, showing that she too is desperate to lay her hands on the earrings before being beamed up. This reveals to us that old Mama is some form of alien who's been present on Earth since the dawn of humankind, possibly earlier, and also makes clear that Rich Mama and old Mama's objectives are different, but both important to themselves. This episode is where things begin to become important, but we'll move on to episode 4. In this episode, we witness the death of Axel. Axel dies as a result of Slimy Mama shoving her hand just so far up his ass, and then having the surgery to have it removed fail, resulting in his death. After the funeral, his casket falls off a cliff and lands right in front of Evil Mama, who clearly has plans for it. This is elaborated on further in later episodes, so for now, let's finish the overview of the miniseries so we can just discuss the main course and connect all the dots. The final episode shows Brody in a house with Stupid Mama. Stupid Mama leaves to go into the snow for some unknown reason, which leads to Brody following after her. Brody then stumbles across hundreds of frozen variations of the Stupid Mama character, which freaks him out. Once again, Evil Mama witnesses this from the shadows. This shows once again that she has some form of plan involving this odd occurrence, and perhaps is even the one who initiated it. Now that I've given a brief summary of the miniseries event, we can go on to the main course, the final joke, and then begin discussing theories and connections between each of these episodes. The final joke opens in the year 2011 with Zach, James and Axel in a theatre hall hosting rehearsals for the new show, Yo Mama. This provides us with an origin story for Brody Fox, as well as giving us some references to other characters throughout the series. After a brief montage of a handful of the previous jokes, we're in the modern year, 2020, watching Brody Fox trying to decide on a joke in the studio. He explains that he wants the joke to be something extravagant and begins suggesting several ideas for futures to include in the joke, eventually leading to nuclear fallout. At this point, the devil arrives and explains that the hard part is coming up with one good joke before offering one of his own. This begins the anime intro sequence, possibly one of the greatest anime sequences in modern, if not all, of human history. But that's a story for another day. This sequence begins with what seems to just be character introductions for the show, but if you look deeper, you'll notice much more important details. For example, when Rich Mama's butler takes out the robber, you'll notice that he gets a cut on his arm. If you look closer at it, it seems that there are wires or something similar underneath his suit rather than blood or skin, implying he is of a mechanical origin. And when Rich Mama is running, we see that she's holding the earring which she got in episode 1 of the miniseries, which is likely what the robber was after. After seeing a couple more characters, we see Smart Mama in front of a board packed with equations which all seem to revolve around the earring. This is another thing I didn't actually notice on my first time watching, and a couple of other people I've spoken to didn't notice this. The earring is, or at least I think it's the earring in the center of the board. This confirms that Smart Mama is in on this with whatever it is that Rich Mama is trying to do. We get confirmation that Old Mama has some sort of relationship with extraterrestrial beings before seeing what happened to the collection of stupid mamas from the final episode of the miniseries. One other thing that I think is definitely worth adding about Old Mama is that it looks like she has a hole in her ear about the size of an earring, which makes sense based on the ending of the third miniseries episode in which Old Mama expresses immense anger at not being able to get a hold of the earrings. I believe that these earrings are perhaps a source of power from this extraterrestrial race. We see that Rich Mama and Evil Mama are standing in some sort of lab surrounded by tubes full of different variations of Stupid Mama. This also confirms that whatever it is that Rich Mama needed Brody Fox's earrings for, she's joining forces with Evil Mama as we see the Evil Mama is placing the earring onto a corpse. I believe that having these two on the same side in this adventure is a critique of capitalism and how the 1% are willing to offer up anything to anyone, even someone ruling over Satan himself, if it benefited them. On one final note for this section, we see Axel's corpse is the corpse in the tube that Evil Mama put the earring on. We then return to Brody Fox in the desert with the devil, where he is asked if he wants to keep this going. His response is yes, whatever it takes. This line appears to be a reference to the fourth miniseries episode, Goodbye Old Friend, when Axel's response to whether or not he wants to take the dangerous surgery is yes, whatever it takes.
Yeah, Doc, anything, whatever it takes!
I believe this is incredibly important because this scene ends in some form of power transfer between Brody, the devil, and Axel's corpse, which manages to resurrect him. Whatever beam it is that surrounds Brody appeared to come from the direction of the devil, so I can only assume that whatever transferal is going on here was initiated by the devil. If this is the case, it would mean that he is in cahoots with Evil Mama and Rich Mama because the beam travels straight to the laboratory where those two are holding Axel's corpse. This could be perceived as Brody selling his soul for Yo Mama jokes or losing part of his spirit for it. While we can't be exactly sure of what it was that is being transferred here, the ideas aren't too far apart. Once this scene ends, we are greeted with the logo for Yo Mama Chapter 2 before panning down to Zack, Brody and the Devil in front of a new studio, presumably for filming Yo Mama jokes which the Devil created for them. Before credits roll, we get one final scene where the Devil introduces Joe Mama before the credits roll. But we're not done. After the credits, the tone changes to represent something much darker, something much more sinister. We bear witness to a destroyed living room in a place referred to as only Universe 77,108 Alpha Timeline. Here we see a picture of a man that looks very similar to Brody Fox along with his wife. The scene cuts to the man in the picture being chased down a hallway pleading for his life. Whoever is after him is looking for Brody Fox and this individual claims to be Brady Wolf. Alas, it isn't enough to save him as we see him get brutally cut in half as a single bloody feather softly floats to the ground. That concludes my breakdown of the final joke as well as the mini-series building up to it. From this point onwards, I'll be going over some speculation surrounding the episode, different theories and possibilities about the information that isn't set in stone just yet. I'd like to begin by discussing the theory that I shared a year ago, that theory being that Brody is trapped in purgatory after suffering his demise. While it's still possible that this theory could hold water, there are a lot of changes to be made to it. So if you don't know how the theory goes, you can watch the previous video linked below, but if you don't want to have to sit through that video, then fair enough, I'll give you a brief rundown. Basically, all it boils down to is that Brody dies in one of the earlier Yo Mama episodes, and the episodes following are his attempts to break the cycle and escape purgatory. Again, as a result of this new information, some elements will need to be altered. One example of how this could potentially hold is in the 2020 section of the final joke that takes place in the Yo Mama studio. The part I want to discuss is Brody putting forth suggestions for things to add into the joke. Explosions, Vin Diesel, Shrek, etc, etc. I think this holds importance because assuming the theory to be correct, this could all be further attempts from Brody to break the cycle, showing his desperation to leave his purgatory which climaxes with the destruction of this studio. When the smoke clears, the devil shows up delivering this line.
Getting all that stuff is the easy part. What you really need is just one good joke.
If this theory holds and Brody truly is in purgatory, the prevalence of Satan himself throughout the whole series, as well as this one line, makes so much sense. In order to break the cycle, Brody needs one joke to appease the spirits. If this were to be the case, I would imagine that Rich Mama and Evil Mama are trying to get Brody out of purgatory and Old Mama is doing what she can to keep him there, but the evidence for this goes both ways. In the anime sequence, we see Brody negotiating with the devil, which climaxes to some form of energy transfer discussed earlier. There are now 3 branching routes to this theory, all of which have varying levels of legitimacy. Number 1. Axel is in purgatory and lives in the body of Brody Fox, which explains why something occurs between Brody and Axel's corpse. However, I find this unlikely, as in order for this to occur, Rich Mama had to get the earrings off of Brody himself, which wouldn't really work if Brody was in another plane of existence. The only way this could work is if Axel's death from the miniseries occurred before the rest of the series. We don't know the dates of this joke. Number 2. Old Mama is looking to free Brody from purgatory for some reason or another, and Evil Mama and Rich Mama are against Brody. This could make sense as, well, Evil Mama is supposed to be evil as it's in her name, and Old Mama has already been shown to be capable of teleportation with extraterrestrial technology. Who's to say she can't cross planes of existence and interdimensional lines? So it would make sense for her presence to be there. Number 3. Evil Mama is in fact the force of good trying to release Brody from purgatory while Old Mama wants to keep him there. This could be possible as we already know Old Mama has been around since the dawn of time and is an interdimensional being, implying that Brody being in purgatory shouldn't really be a problem to her, thus meaning she has no reason to want him out. I think it's more plausible that she wants to keep him where he is, for one reason or another, perhaps to make it easier to obtain the earrings. You can really mix and match these 3 theories to create a theory that works for you, but none of them answer the question of who's trying to kill Brody Fox. If this theory is to be considered, wouldn't Brody already be dead? And thus, why would someone be looking to kill him? That being said, we know that this person is also an interdimensional timeline jumping being, so a thread of logic can likely be constructed. In conclusion, this theory can still ring true, but personally, I don't believe this to be the direction the series is going to take, even though it would answer a vast quantity of the questions raised by the final joke. So where can we go from here? Shall we simply ask some questions and see if we can find some answers? So, other possibilities. It's possible that the scene between Brody and the devil is Brody selling his soul or some essence of his life form. He could be doing this for 2 reasons unrelated to my previous theory. Number 1, to get more Yo Mama jokes. Number 2, to bring Axel back to life in some way, shape or form. Very little can be 100% confirmed, but it is obvious that Axel plays a major role considering the power withdrawn from Brody goes directly to Axel's corpse, resurrecting him. We also see a flashback reel of Brody and Axel. The way the scene is framed implies that these memories are in Axel's mind, implying that some form of psychological connection has occurred between Brody and Axel as well as a physical one. Well, these facts in consideration, I think that Brody's energy was used to resurrect Axel, obviously, and it is plausible that Brody knew what it was going towards. This can be backed up by the use of the line, "whatever it takes." This links back to one of Axel's final sentences before his death in miniseries episode 4, implying some form of connection between the 2 of them. Another question that we have very little to work with in the hunt for an answer is who the third party is. What I mean by that is who killed Brady Wolf in an attempt to kill Brody Fox. It's obvious that Old Mama is working against Rich Mama and Evil Mama, and it's also obvious that Brody is the central focus of this. This suggests that the third party also has some idea of the power of the earrings as their target is Brody, which we can only assume is the case because they know of his power. As for who it is exactly, even though I don't have any ideas, the only clue we're given is the single feather that delicately lands on the floor after Brady's death. Could the feather be razor sharp, making it the murder weapon? Is it simply a calling card, perhaps so the perpetrator knows which dimensions they have and haven't been to? Similar to a trail of breadcrumbs in the woods. Is it simply an article of clothing that has fallen off? Part of their being, perhaps? There are many possibilities, and after watching it many times, frame by frame, I can't come to a conclusion I'm 100% confident in for the time being. Personally, I believe the feather may be a calling card left behind in each dimension where they kill a version of Brody Fox, so they know where they have and haven't been, but I have very little basis for it. Everyone can have different beliefs about this is just my gut instinct. To conclude, this episode tied up loose ends, introduced new threads for the new series, and developed characters like could never be expected, creating a story out of something so seemingly standard. The future looks bright for this series, and I'm excited to see where it goes, which theories hold, and those that are blatantly wrong. Be sure to share your thoughts and theories in the comments below, let me know if I missed anything, and I'll catch you later.